But I remember people saying, quitting drinking is the easy part. And I would look at people like, fuck you. This is not easy. Don't minimize what I'm going through. This is really hard, right? I
Mhm,
want to jump in front of a bus. It's that hard. And
mhm.
so I stopped listening to everything I was hearing in meetings, and I took the things that I knew I needed, and I let the other stuff kind of fall away.
I learned that one the hard way. Even if it happened to me that I had no control over, I still have control over everything I do about it. And that was like a light bulb moment for me. It's like, wait, whoa, holy. Whoa. So even if this disaster here hit, I've got control over everything else I do afterwards.
So anybody who's listening right now that is just in the early stages of sobriety, when we say things like the quitting drinking is the easy part, that feels like a punch in the gut, I think, to somebody in early sobriety. So I will just make sure that I explain that it is hard work, but it's also the most fulfilling work you're going to do.
Self-reflection is so huge. You start to realize that it's kind of all on you, right? Like I spent so much time blaming somebody else for me having a bad day, or somebody else for something going wrong, or what happened to me in my past for why I was making the choices I was making. But then when I could self-reflect and take that ownership and realize I control my actions in every situation.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery Podcast, where we believe that connection is the opposite of addiction, vulnerability is the antidote to shame, and personal growth is the key to loving your sober life. We're your hosts, Julie Miller and Steve Knapp. Join us in conversations with people from all over the globe about how you can thrive, not just survive, in a life without alcohol.
Before we jump into the episode, we've got an announcement for our regular listeners. If you followed us since the beginning, as so many of you have, you'll know how much we've changed and evolved over the years.
So we're going to rebrand the podcast to No Alcohol Needed in the new year to reflect the growth and the evolution that we've experienced. Basically, we're leveling up. So you're going to see some new colors, a new logo, a slightly new vibe, but it'll still be the same hosts doing the same thing. We're having meaningful conversations that help you learn how to be happy. No alcohol needed.
We'll announce more in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out on social media and our website for the new logo and all of the changes. We'll roll right into the new year with great new content aimed at personal growth, emotional intelligence, and real happiness in sobriety.
Okay, let's dig into this week's conversation. All right, hello and welcome everybody. So happy to see you guys today. We are hanging out with Sean and Dave, and all of our listeners. We're just so happy you're here. So yeah, today we are going to talk about what is the work of sobriety or the work of recovery. We know that our listeners often hear people talk about doing the work. Especially in recovery circles and meetings and groups and stuff. But sometimes it's hard to know exactly what that means. So often people will be like, you're going to love sobriety once you start doing the work. And people are like, I think I am doing the work and I'm still miserable. What's going on here? So we're going to dig into what that means today. We're going to talk about what the work is, what that looks like in our lives, and kind of hopefully give you some direction as far as what that might look like in your life, or things you can start doing to feel some forward momentum happening. So before we dig into it, we are going to have these guys tell you a little bit about themselves. I'm going to let Dave kick us off because he's been here many times before. So how are you, Dave?
Yo, I'm good. I'm doing really good. Thank you. Thanks for having me again. I'm Dave. I am just over 3 years, 3 months sober. I don't know how many days that is. I have 5 kids and a partner, and I live in St. Louis, Missouri currently. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Super happy to have you. We've followed Dave since the very beginning of this. It's been so cool just to see your whole transformation. And the last year especially has been phenomenal to keep up with. So to our listeners,
Thank you.
we're going to drop Dave's contact information, his social media handles in the show notes. Make sure you check it out. Super inspiring stuff. Lots of really cool fitness journeys. So make sure you guys check
Thank
that
you.
out. Then
Nice.
we've also got Sean here with us today. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, my name's Sean Rollinson. Um, I live in Arizona, kind of Scottsdale, Phoenix area. Licensed professional counselor. Have a private practice. Father of 3 people. My oldest son is Parker. He's 30. My middle child, Peyton, is 26, and our daughter, Paulina, is 16. I started my recovery journey in 2000. So I've been doing this about 25, 26 years. First couple of years were up and down, so I don't have 26 years of recovery, but I've got over 20. I honestly don't remember my sobriety date, and I can get into that later. But I've been doing this a long time, and I'm just really grateful to be here.
Awesome.
Awesome.
We're
Wow.
really, really happy to have you.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
awesome, man.
I'm going to tell our listeners too. We met Sean. Steve and I went to the TEDx talk in Grand Junction, Colorado, back a couple months ago. And that's where we met Sean. He was a speaker. So we are definitely going to have a link to the talk that you did in the show notes also, because we want our listeners to check that out. Super cool to hear. And that's what made us
Waiting
chase
for it to
Sean down.
drop.
Oh, are we still waiting for it?
Yeah, I'm the only one on the series that hasn't had theirs uploaded yet, so I'm a little
Okay.
anxious.
Yeah,
I'll
I
let you know
know.
when it happens.
For sure.
I've
Well,
searched it. I've
Have you?
searched it to see if I can find it so I can start sharing it, because Julie and I were sitting at the front of his talk, and afterwards we met Sean, and he was like, "You guys were like right into it," and we were. We felt his words.
I felt like I was
And-
giving the talk just to these two.
It was so, well, I mean, Steve and I are geeking out anyway. We're like the only people in the entire audience that are in the very front row. And like every so often, Sean would say something and we'd like elbow each other and be like, "Did you hear that?" Totally
well,
good. Totally
they're-
aligned.
Yeah, not my ideas. We've just all heard the same ideas multiple times. So I was just parroting back mostly of what I've heard.
Absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
that's what we do. We hear it, we apply it, we share it with others. That's why we're all here
Absolutely.
doing this today too. So
Yep.
anyway, okay.
For
well, let us
sure.
know when the link drops. We're going to make sure we share it
I
with
will.
everybody.
I definitely
'cause-
will. Hopefully it's this week.
Yeah,
That'd be
definitely.
awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, let's dive into this a little bit. So, people start out on their whole sober recovery journey with a ton of misconceptions. So, what did you think that the work of sobriety was going to look like back in your early days when you first quit? What did you think you were getting into?
Sean's laughing already.
Dave, I'm going to let you take this one first.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, God.
really,
Hairs on the back of my neck went up.
to simplify it, I thought I just had to not drink, right? Like that was the basic part of it. How hard could that be, right? And then you quickly realize the work that has to come along with it is way deeper than just putting down a drink. You know, that actually ends up being the easy part, is the not drinking part. The working on yourself is the hard part. And you got to really be honest with yourself and be willing to deep dive into yourself. You know, I spent so many years using my past as an excuse and letting it define who I was and the reason why I kept drinking. So I had to close all those gaps and come to terms with all of that and accept it and not let it define me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that anybody who's listening right now that is just in their early stages of sobriety, when we say things like the quitting drinking is the easy part, that feels like a punch in the gut, I think, to somebody in early sobriety. So I will just give you guys that make sure that I explain that it is hard work, but it's also the most fulfilling work you're gonna do.
We're going to pause right here for just a second so I can take a moment to share something that I'm really excited about. I'm hosting a free workshop about finding your values and learning to use them to get some clarity in your recovery and in your life. This is for the people who keep saying, "I don't know who I am anymore," or "I quit drinking, but I'm still just not happy." Most of you have heard me talk about values more times than I can count here on the podcast, and I have put together all the research I've done and all of my own personal experience, and I've created an interactive workshop that is going to help you find the same understanding that I have. This is a great opportunity to head into the new year with an actual map of where you're heading, not just a random New Year's resolution. If you'd like to join me at no cost to you, visit my website at createalifesoful.com and click on free resources to sign up.
As a human, after you figure out how to do life without alcohol, it does get hard. It gets emotionally and mentally hard, but it's also what's going to make life really worth living. So yes, it's hard, but hard is worth it. It's not like it's just going to be this miserable slog and struggle forever. It's going to come with a lot of fulfillment too. So throw that out there, because I know that, in those early days, you're like, oh my God, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Like you get through day 3 and so anybody hearing it's going to get harder, like it is in so many ways, but it's going to get harder in this way that makes life feel great. So I'll throw that out there. But no, you're spot on, Dave, with everything you just said there.
Yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
glad you said that because there's so many of those things you hear early on, like not drinking is the easy part, or it's going to get easier. Like I'd hear all these things when I was in rehab or going to meetings back then, and I'm like, yeah, right, you guys are
And
crazy. You don't
so
even know what you're talking about.
then you'd fake sneeze like bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I'm looking at somebody like who has years like Sean, 20 plus years. And in my head, I'm thinking like that person has no idea what they're talking about when in reality they knew exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Sean? What you got? What did you
Oh
think you were
man,
getting into?
I'm just thinking back. I'll be honest. When I first told my family I was alcoholic, they didn't believe me. They were in more denial than I was. And I'm like, you're missing all your drugs and your medicine cabinet. You're missing all your alcohol in your liquor cabinet. And it's me. And they just didn't believe it. So I really thought the expectation at first was just not to drink, but I could smoke all the weed I wanted. I could take all of the, over the counter medication that I wanted. All I just didn't need to do was drink. Right. And it was that I was an alcoholic. I wasn't addicted to anything else. I wasn't reliant on other things to manage the way in which I felt. And I did that for 4 years, or about 3 years, where I didn't drink alcohol, but I smoked marijuana daily. Back in 2000, you could get basically amphetamine at any Circle K, over the counter, stuff like that. And I took those. So I was geeked out on other stuff for 4 years, and I wasn't really doing any recovery. So that's what I thought at first. It was just don't drink. And then I totally shit the bed, and my life took an even harder hit, and I started drinking again for a little bit, and I crashed real quick. And so what I really learned was all I have to do is not drink today, and that's all I have to do. And for the first 10 years of my recovery, I was involved in 12-step recovery, and I utilize that like, they say, like a man clinging, a drowning man clinging to a boat. I just really utilize that, and I just didn't drink one day at a time. And that and I didn't use and I didn't do other things to navigate the way I was feeling. And when I did that, it just got easier and easier over time.
As a human, after you figure out how to do life without alcohol, it does get hard. It gets emotionally and mentally hard, but it's also what's going to make life really worth living. So yes, it's hard, but hard is worth it. It's not like it's just going to be this miserable slog and struggle forever. It's going to come with a lot of fulfillment too. So throw that out there, because I know that, in those early days, you're like, oh my God, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Like you get through day 3 and so anybody hearing it's going to get harder, like it is in so many ways, but it's going to get harder in this way that makes life feel great. So I'll throw that out there. But no, you're spot on, Dave, with everything you just said there.
Yeah, I'm so
Yep.
glad you said that because there's so many of those things you hear early on, like not drinking is the easy part, or it's going to get easier. Like I'd hear all these things when I was in rehab or going to meetings back then, and I'm like, yeah, right, you guys are
And
crazy. You don't
so
even know what you're talking about.
then you'd fake sneeze like bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I'm looking at somebody like who has years like Sean, 20 plus years. And in my head, I'm thinking like that person has no idea what they're talking about when in reality they knew exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Sean? What you got? What did you
Oh
think you were
man,
getting into?
I'm just thinking back. I'll be honest. When I first told my family I was alcoholic, they didn't believe me. They were in more denial than I was. And I'm like, you're missing all your drugs and your medicine cabinet. You're missing all your alcohol and your liquor cabinet. And it's me. And they just didn't believe it. So I really thought the expectation at first was just not to drink, but I could smoke all the weed I wanted. I could take all of the, over the counter medication that I wanted. All I just didn't need to do was drink. Right. And it was that I was an alcoholic. I wasn't addicted to anything else. I wasn't reliant on other things to manage the way in which I felt. And I did that for 4 years, or about 3 years, where I didn't drink alcohol, but I smoked marijuana daily. Back in 2000, you could get basically amphetamine at any Circle K, over the counter stuff like that. And I took those, so I was geeked out on other stuff for 4 years, and I wasn't really doing any recovery. So that's what I thought at first. It was just don't drink, and then I totally shit the bed, and my life took an even harder hit, and I started drinking again for a little bit, and I crashed real quick. And so what I really learned was all I have to do is not use, not drink today, and that's all I have to do. And for the first 10 years of my recovery, I was involved in 12-step recovery, and I utilized that like, they say, like a man clinging, a drowning man clinging to a boat. I just really utilized that, and I just didn't drink one day at a time. And I didn't use, and I didn't do other things to navigate the way I was feeling. And when I did that, it just got easier and easier over time. But I remember people saying, quitting drinking is the easy part. And I would look at people like, fuck you. This is not easy. Don't minimize what I'm going through. This is really hard, right? I want to jump in front of a bus. It's that hard. And so I stopped listening to everything I was hearing in meetings, and I took the things that I knew I needed, and I let the other stuff kind of fall away. But at the very beginning, I just didn't drink. That was the work for the first couple years. And then it evolves. Right. And when I keep it that simple, I stayed sober.
This is kind of how I was going to explain it myself, Sean, was I didn't think quitting drinking was going to be as mentally hard as it was. And I think that's the response to when someone says, like, that's the quitting is the easy part. And your response is like, fuck you. That's bullshit. I don't believe you. Like, how dare you tell me that my experience right now that is hard as hell is the easy part? And I didn't think it was going to be near as hard as it was. And the emotional experience that was attached to letting go of the drinking was also the launch pad of the emotional experiences that I was going to have to deal with next. That one day at a time type of mentality, getting over all of just the hard stuff of the habit of drinking in my truck on a daily basis, and the habit of replacing the void that alcohol left just by not doing that thing for the day was extremely mentally taxing. And I didn't know the work was going to be talking about the things that I was going through. I didn't know it was going to be trying to connect with other people and like reaching out and facing not just the fear of not alcohol existing in my life anymore, but like picking up the phone and calling a freaking friend and being afraid of interrupting their day because I was struggling that day. Like, since when did I become that important that I got to interrupt someone's life because I needed help? And I had to make myself that important in some of those moments. Now today I can tolerate that stuff a lot better than I could before. I can discern it, but back then it was super simple. It was like emotion, whatever the hell that is, because I didn't know how to put words to it, and then react, because responding, pausing wasn't a thing. It was just like, do something right away. to
Mhm.
alleviate it, because my solution to that discomfort was drinking. It just was. It was the solution to all of the discomfort, even what I thought was comfort, like the celebrating and stuff like that. I didn't realize that it meant involving other people
Mm.
in my life that I didn't want to have involved in my life at all.
My recovery journey started in 2019. I stayed sober for about a year and a half. I literally thought that the only thing I had to do was take alcohol out of my life and then continue living my life exactly the way that I did. And that's
Mhm.
exactly why I ended up going back to drinking. And to
Mhm.
Steve's point, that first time around, I didn't tell a soul what I was doing. My husband knew that I was quitting drinking and he thought it was for health reasons. I did not reach out for any kind of help or assistance. And I didn't realize there was anything more. And when you aren't connecting with other people, you're not talking to other people, I think that's when you don't realize there's more to this. There's ways to get through this that aren't just white knuckling it and suffering life without alcohol. Um, and so I think that, to Steve's point, what he said about connecting with people is important. The other thing really quick that I'm gonna that came to mind for me when we're talking about, like, we tell people getting sober is the easy part. That reminds, I have adult children now. And I know, Sean, you're in the same place. And I know when my kids were little, when I had two little girls and they're like 2 and 6 years old, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. This is like the hardest thing I've ever done. And the moms of adult children would be like, "Oh, honey, it's only going to get harder." And I'm like, there's no way I can imagine this getting any harder. I was so tired and I was so stressed out. And I felt like, I mean, I'd completely lost myself in motherhood, which you do. That's normal. And now I've got adult children. And I was like, oh no, they were right. Like, it is so much harder when they're out there making their own grown up decisions. But you can't imagine it when your kids are toddlers. And I think it's the same way with recovery. When you're in the thick of it in those early days, you're like, no, this is it. So, it's one day at a time. You're going to find yourself into the next phase, and that's okay. For right now, focus on where you're at and what you need to do in the moment you're in, because the other stuff will usher itself into your life when that time comes, for sure. Sean,
Absolutely.
did you have something else you wanted to add there?
Well, I was just thinking about this idea of the one day at a time. It's no different than, somebody that's learning how to run marathons or going to the gym and weightlifting. When you first go into the gym, you don't lift very heavy weights and you just keep going back and you incrementally get better, but you don't realize you're stronger until, many months later. When you're looking at being sober, really it's about how am I going to live life on life's terms? The acronym of sober, son of a bitch, everything is real, right? Like, how do I navigate life knowing that I can't use or drink anymore? And if you can't use or drink anymore, because that's just a symptom of the underlying problem. And the underlying problem is that, I don't know for you guys, but I have a hard time accepting reality as it is. I want people, places, and things to change. I have a hard time of controlling my racing thoughts. I have a hard time managing my emotions without outside things. So all of those are the disease of alcoholism or addiction, and the drinking is just a way to cure that in the short term. So I have to learn how to live with this brain that is a little bit different than people's without my original solution. And I got to
Mhm.
find a new solution. And there's really only one solution, and that's raising the level of conscious awareness. It's raising your level of emotional intelligence, raising your level of social intelligence. Um, that's the only solution that I know of.
So let's dig into that, because that's kind of the direction that I want to head. Is when you get to the point where you've kind of figured sobriety out, you know how to get through the day to day without the physical habit pull that we all start out with. How do you know what direction to take? How do you start learning the emotional intelligence, the social intelligence? What does that look like? Or what did that look like for you personally? How did you find your way into, the growth that has to happen in order for recovery to be sustainable?
So I'm going to piggyback off of something Sean said, and
Okay.
hopefully I can tie this in. Sean talked about lifting weights and running a marathon. And Dave, you can probably relate to this when you first started. And you go to the gym and you think you can lift more weights than what you can. You think you can do higher reps, and you think you can lift more. You see other people doing it, just like in sobriety. You see other people doing it, and that looks easy. And you're like, yeah, I could probably, lift 80 pounds 20 times. It's no big deal. It's just like, yeah, I can do 50 push-ups without stopping, until you start doing 50 push-ups. And you haven't done a push-up in 30 years, me. And then you go and start doing push-ups, and you're toast at 18. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good because your expectation of what you're able to accomplish is way higher than what my actual ability was. And this happened to me when I went and did CrossFit. My expectation of what my ability was way greater than what my ability was. The same thing happened to me in sobriety. I saw other people doing these things that I wished I could do, and I just could not do them near as well as they could. The cool part about that was they were there already. So they had done something or enough of the same thing to get them to that point. And so for the emotional work and the what it looks like, or how it turned into, was I saw people that had something that I didn't have. And I needed to find the willingness to go, how did they get there? And then listen to what they were saying, which was fucking hard to actually listen to what they were saying, and then try and apply that to my life. Try, use that word, try, because that was the hardest part. I failed so much at doing the thing, thinking I was capable of it. And it's not that I failed fully. I got 3/4 of the way there, and then fumbled the last 25% because I hadn't experienced it yet. I hadn't given myself the opportunity to get that far into, say, a conversation or a disagreement or an apology in my life that required me to stay in the moment long enough to see it resolved.
Rewrite the
Yeah,
story.
I love that, working out analogy, obviously for many reasons. But to piggyback off of what you were saying, Steve, is, like when I first started going to the gym, I just stuck on the treadmill because that's where I was comfortable. Similar to my drinking, I was staying drinking because I was comfortable. That's what I knew. I didn't want to branch out. I didn't want to go to that other side of the gym and ask someone like, "Hey, what do you train? How do you lift? What program are you doing?" And you have to really get comfortable in your own skin to be able to do that. And to correlate that to my recovery, I had to be able to get comfortable to reach out to people like you two and ask for help when I was in those moments, and understand that I can learn from people that have already gone down that road and done the work and grown. And when you can do that, I think it helps you with the social aspect, as you were talking about, because people have gone through it and been through it. I leaned on counseling also heavily, to be able to do the work on myself. Coming back from rehab, I didn't realize how much work was going to still have to be done. I say this all the time. I got back from rehab with my notepad and thought I'm good to go. I have this trusty notepad where I journaled and wrote all my notes, and everything was going to be a piece of cake when I got back, but it wasn't. And you have to be willing to reach out to others and ask for help and lean on them, and not feel like you're putting them out, because what you don't know is there's people like us that are just here waiting for someone to reach out. We want you to reach out. We want to be able to give that help and tell you what we've learned from, and tell you the mistakes that we've made and where we could have grown and been different, you know. And I understand that fear of wanting to, right? Like you don't want to put anybody out, like you were saying, Steve. Why am I so important that I could reach out to XYZ and ask them for help? But if you can get past that, we're all here, ready,
I
open
also
arms.
I also hated hearing the wisdom that I thought I had wasn't wisdom at all.
Mhm.
Like that stung. Like
Mhm.
that was humility wrapped in a bow and a Christmas present and everything else because I thought I fucking knew, and then I opened it up and I was like, that sucker's empty. Damn.
No, it takes courage to reach out and be like, hey, how did you get to where you're at? Anytime that someone is where you want to be, they would love to help you get to the point that they're at. Anybody who is successful in anything is going to reach a hand down and pull you up to their level. But it takes so much courage to reach out and say, hey, can you give me some pointers? So I think that's, yeah, it's definitely a very courageous thing. What about you,
Yeah,
Sean?
now
What you got?
I got so lost in the conversation, I forgot the original question, but I think it's kind of like once you've got your footing, what's the next step?
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
Well, obviously, we need community, so that you guys have covered that. But one thing that I find, even in the people that I work with, or in my own life, is at the very beginning of recovery. I like thinking in metaphors. So I'm on a boat and I'm trying to go from one island to the next island, but I can't see the island I'm going to. I don't really know where my destination. I've kind of got an outline of where it is, but I'm not really certain. So I use the island that I left as my anchor, as my vantage point based on where I'm at. So I use my last day drinking as how much farther have I gotten away from that? How much have I improved? Right. And that can last for a couple of years, because in any given day in my early recovery, and even today, I can be like, man, I'm having a really shitty day. But is it better than the day I had 26 years ago? Abso-freaking-lutely. So now it's a good day. Right. So I'm constantly looking in the rearview mirror, not staring, but just kind of giving my, like, where am I today based on that? That really
Mhm.
helps it in recovery even today, a couple decades later. But then eventually what happens is you see the outline of the island you're going to, and that's metaphoric for your purpose, for what you want to do with your life. Not what does your parents want you to do or your partner want you to do, but why are you here? And once you start seeing that outline, then you hone in on that and you use the recovery skills that you've learned to find your destination. And that is your goal. I don't identify as an alcoholic anymore. I don't
Mhm.
drink. I don't drink. I don't use drugs. I try to limit how much social media and how much carbs I eat, which I'm terrible with the carbs, but I don't identify like that. And eventually individuals won't have to identify as, oh, this is all I am as an alcoholic.
Mhm.
But the first, once you kind of get your sea legs, again, going back to just the basics, every day is a new thing to learn. Today is a different day. How am I going to meet this day sober? And every day that I go and put my head on the pillow and I didn't drink that day, I've become more emotionally intelligent, more spiritually mature, wiser, and I grow each day. And so, for those of us that struggle with social anxiety, putting yourself in a position where you're going to go to the get together and you're not going to drink and you're going to walk through that and get through the other side. Well, you're walking through the door of fear, you're walking through the door of anxiety. And once you get to the other side, you've matured. Now you know how to
That's the
do that.
workout, right? That is
That's the
literally the
work.
workout.
That's the
Yeah.
Yeah.
work. And the
Yeah.
work can look like AA meetings, smart recovery meetings, church meetings, group meetings. It can look like all sorts of stuff. But the individual work is where you get emotional long-term sobriety. You don't get emotional long-term sobriety in group work. You have to learn how to trust yourself and be like, damn, I did that. I did
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Nobody else did it for me. Not my
How hard?
sponsor, not my groups.
How hard was that to actually give yourself credit for? Because I
Terribly
like
hard. I didn't do it for the
giving my
first 10 years.
giving
Oh,
myself credit for actually doing something good was hard. It felt prideful. It felt like it felt like I was tooting my own horn and I shouldn't be doing that. No. Like there was a lot of weird feelings that went along with just being prideful about accomplishing the thing that I had set out accomplishing, or even if I came up with a realization that I was working toward or not working toward that ended up happening because I put myself in
Yeah.
that situation.
Yeah. Or just the
Yeah, I
pride in
think
like, hey, I told the truth. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I've been
yeah,
honest
yeah,
for a year.
Right?
yeah. I think also that sometimes it's hard to give yourself that credit when it's something that seems so small too. Like
Mhm.
I went out to a bowling alley and everybody around me was drinking and I didn't drink, right? Like that seems so basic, but guess what? That's a fucking win and that's a huge win, right? Like you were there while all of society was telling you that's the normal thing to do is to drink while everybody's bowling and you didn't do it. And I didn't want to give myself credit for that. But now when I go do these things, I like almost have like a puffed chest. Like, yeah, I'm the strongest person in this room right now because I'm not drinking and I'm not doing the thing that seems quote unquote normal for everybody to be doing because they have a bowling ball in their hand, right? Like,
Yeah.
and now it's like a flex, I feel confident and I'm proud about it.
That
Mhm.
feeling is better than any alcohol or any drug I've ever done.
Yes.
Hell
And
yeah.
when you get that
Absolutely.
feeling, that's all you want is more of that.
Hell
Yep.
yeah. Yeah.
Facts.
100%.
I used to survey the room and like see the people drinking and think I was the odd one. And then when you gain that confidence, like it's exactly like you said, Sean, it's huge.
hmm Yeah,
Truly.
that's a high. That's actually worth chasing. I will say for me, when I started trying to figure out what the work was, I'm a big journaler. And for me, the learning came in my journal. So I would get through a situation, a hard emotion, a thing. I remember especially in the early days, I had a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old, and that life is hard when you have a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old daughter. And so every day brought up emotions, hard things to get through, frustrations and anger and resentment and all the arguments and whatever. And so all of these emotions would come bubbling up. And basically, what I did, the system that I put in place early on was I would get through it however I needed to get through it, best I could. And then when all of those emotions settled back down, a lot of times that was like the next morning. Then I would get my journal out and I'd be like, okay, what actually happened here? What am I like reflecting back? Hindsight is always 2020. So I would look back and I'd be like, okay, what was I actually feeling? Why was I feeling that way? How did I respond? Am I proud of how I responded? What could I have done differently so that I can do something better the next time I'm in a similar situation? And so I would like analyze the situation looking back on it. And I think that that was the most valuable thing I could have done. And for sure, at that point, Steve and I were talking. We were both managing early recovery together. So I would bounce ideas off of him and be like, oh, well, she said this and then I felt this way. And he'd be like, well, is that because you felt shame or you felt insecure or you felt, and so I could reflect on that. And digging into the little things that happened throughout the days, throughout the weeks, that's where I think a huge amount of my growth really took off. And I think it takes practice to be able to self reflect that way, because a lot of times that would mean that I'd be writing in my journal and I would talk about, I would have to own the fact that, yeah, I turned around and I yelled at her and I said something I hate that I said. And I feel like a horrible mother for the thing that I said. And here's what was going through my head. Here's why I did that. This is why I was feeling defensive, because I was feeling shame, because I'm insecure about being a mom or whatever it was. Those things are hard to write and those things are hard to admit to yourself. And when I started doing that, then things started changing. My behavior changed going forward. I looked at situations differently going forward. So I think when it comes to really getting started on a growth path, it was taking time to reflect after I white knuckled my way through whatever it was. You talk about social situations, walking into a group of people and getting through the craving that inevitably came up. And then it would be like the next morning, it'd be like, okay, why did I want to drink so bad? What was going on there? Or I'd have all this insecurity and be, how you run the stories through your head over and over again. All the things that I said that I wish I wouldn't have said. And then I would dig into that and reflect and figure out what could look differently the next time. So that was kind of where my growth came from, for
One
sure.
of the one of the things that helped me out a ton was because we were both on the I Am Sober app, and the I Am Sober app puts you with the people that have the same sobriety date as you. So as you post your whatever's on your mind, you are literally in this same cohort of people
Hmm.
growing up in sobriety together. So you get this shared struggle and this shared experience. And then we went to the Zoom meetings that there was people on that app that were supporting those people, and we were in Zoom meetings that were people that were only 2 or 3 months separated from us, and there was a bunch of us, and so we all got to experience that struggle together, and I think that was super helpful. Also, when you talk about sharing the things you had journaled for a long time in your life.
Mhm.
You already had the ability to be self-reflective in a deep way. You just needed to like hone it and use it in a different aspect. You used it so you could not just dump stuff down, but analyze it
Learn
and
from it and grow
learn
from it.
from it.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do any of that shit. I had no idea what that even looked like, but because you had already known how to do it, one of the reasons why I learned how to self-reflect was because you were willing to share the self-reflection. So I was like, oh, that's what that looks like. I can try this and I can start dissecting my own stuff and then looking at it that way. Because self-reflection in and of itself, trying to do it without having an example of it or somebody help you walk through, I think is a large task to try and do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What Julie you're talking about is kind of emotional tracking in my industry. We talk, and you can actually, you know, have a sheet of like, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it in my body? Why am I feeling it? What triggered it? When have I felt this before? And how distressing is it?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you can get to used to do that, that's just, the basic of emotional intelligence is awareness. And when you
Hmm.
start shining a light on something, whatever it is, whether it's something squeaking in the corner or how you're feeling, you're going to learn to understand it. And the byproduct of an understanding is peace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Facts,
So
man.
Mhm.
and that's that feeling that Dave was talking about is after he does, he's in the room and everybody's drinking and he's not. He's got confidence and because he understands himself, and with that confidence and understanding, the feeling is joy and peace. And
Mhm.
that's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we spend so much time avoiding those scary, hard feelings. And I know, like for me, the big, scary, hard feeling was shame. In one way or another, that was the big thing. And so I would avoid it at all cost. When I started walking into it and being like, okay, this is shame. Why do I feel shame? What's going on here? What from my past is making this feeling come up inside of me? Then I could actually feel freedom from it. So I spent my whole life running from it, alcohol and all these other unhealthy behaviors. And as soon as I was like, okay, I'm just going to look at it. And it's ugly and it's painful and I don't like the things that come up with it, and having the courage to look at it and inspect it like you're talking about, Sean, that's where the freedom comes. And you finally feel like you can take a deep breath. And I remember when Steve discovered that, and he was like, I can't even remember what like the first thing was, but the first time you said the hard thing that you didn't even want to have to say out loud. And then you were like, oh my God, this feels so much better. And then it was like Steve hit the ground running and he was like, oh, we're talking about everything. Like we're gonna face it all. And it's once you realize that's where the freedom is, and that's then you stop suffering so much because you're talking about it. That's when the work explodes. That's when I
Mm-hmm.
talk about clients that I work with, and we're tiptoeing through things, and all of a sudden they face something that's hard. They talk about the thing they didn't want to talk about. They admit the thing they didn't want to admit, and it's like they crack open, and then it's just everything grows from there. It's like they shoot up out of the ground and be like fully start flowering. It's amazing. And so I think that's kind of what we're all talking about. And we all got there a little bit in different ways. But that's the goal, is to be able to say, okay, what have I been running from this whole time? What have I not wanted to look at? What was alcohol helping me, stay blind to? And as soon as we finally look at it and have the courage to do it, that's when things take off.
So Julie, we
Yeah,
got another one last question here before we start tying things up. But what I do want to mention here before you load the next question is that we're all talking about community and sharing stories with each other. All of us have mentioned this. Julie and I have a meeting that we run every Monday night at 8:30 uh, Eastern time, 6:30 Mountain time. You can do the math there, but it's the little community that you and I have created to allow for all of this stuff that we're talking about today to happen and give that space. So if you're out there listening right now, and if there's something you feel that you might need, that is also great. Like, subscribe, and follow. Also, that's it. Shameless plug. You can ask the next question.
Yeah, for sure. No, it is. It's you can visit our website through theglassrecovery.com. There's details for the group that we host, and any opportunity you have to connect with people is a good one, especially on this journey. So kind of headed towards. We've talked about how we got started on the work. I know we're all in different places in recovery. We've all had different life experiences to go through since we stopped using alcohol to numb. If you reflect back, like Sean was talking about, and look at the island that you left, what are some of the major benefits that you've experienced in your life because you actually found the courage to start doing the work? And we could probably spend like 8 hours talking about how our lives are better for having finally found the courage. But what are some of the big things that really stand out to you as far as how your life has really been benefited by the inner work that you've done?
Yeah, I'm gonna touch on the self-reflection thing and kind of spin into that. But the self-reflection is so huge because you start to realize that it's kind of all on you, right? Like I spent so much time blaming somebody else for me having a bad day or somebody else for something going wrong or what happened to me in my past for why I was making the choices I was making. But then when I could self-reflect and take that ownership and realize I control my actions in every situation that comes up, it's not what somebody else does to me, it's how I react to that situation, right? And so for me, one of the biggest benefits is realizing that it is at the end of the day, it's me versus me and how I'm going to choose to handle any situation that comes my way. And for me personally, I like that challenge and I like being in control of myself and the choices that I'm going to make. That's a huge benefit to me. That benefit then creates better communication with my partner because I can own what I'm doing and how I'm reacting to a situation. It makes me a better parent because I take more ownership and control in the decisions I make on how to parent for my kids, right? In my fitness, it's on me to challenge myself and push myself and give myself new limits and reach higher standards. Same with nutrition and all of that. My job, I thrive off of putting that finger that I used to point at everyone else and pointing it inward at me and taking ownership on all the decisions that I make.
I have like
Love that.
goosebumps, right? And my favorite thing in the whole world is hanging out with a bunch of people who are totally willing to own all their own shit and take responsibility for everything in their lives. Like, it's so
Oh,
refreshing. Yeah, 100%. I
Yeah,
love what you just said there.
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, that's the tribe you want to belong to.
Exactly.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
This is a great question because there's just so much stuff, and I'm trying to think like, okay, what's the top couple? I don't know about you, but I wasn't a very honest drunk.
No way. No
So-
way.
You're weird.
I wasn't the pillar of moral behavior. I don't have to worry about what I fucking said ever. I don't have
Yeah.
to fucking chase that lie. I don't have to give any mental energy to what I did in the past because I live authentically. And authenticity is what you do when you're alone, when no one's watching. So I love that. I love that I'm not afraid of being who I am. And I don't have to be what you need me to be. I can be who I am. And if you choose to stay, then I know you love me for me. And I know it's a genuine relationship. And then I don't have to worry about how's the relationship because I'm being my true authentic self and you're still here. Right. And so I love that I can just not have to worry about me anymore. I still do. I'm not perfect at it, but that's one of the best things. I truly believe And again, I get a little woo-woo with this stuff, so please bear with me, and then I'll get off the soapbox. But I believe that we as a species need to raise our level of conscious awareness if we are going to survive as a species. We need to raise our level of emotional intelligence. And for those of us that are blessed with the disease of addiction, if you heard what I said, that we're blessed with it, that is the
100%.
quickest way
Mm-hmm.
to raise your level of emotional intelligence, your consciousness. That's the quickest way. I believe in my life that my God made me an alcoholic so I would get to the destination quicker than anybody else. I survived it, but it sucked, right? It fucking sucked. But I survived it and I'm so grateful for it. So the fact that I can sit here and feel my emotions and listen to them and say, okay, and again, on a good day, I'm not perfect at this. I am not. Ask my wife. She's in the next room. She's probably listening going, he is so full of shit, right? But when on the days that I can listen to what my emotions are trying to tell me, and like you were saying, Julie, I can gain wisdom from that, right? I can sit there and be aware of that, and I can learn on my own and then share that with my community. That is a full life. We are supposed to feel our emotions. We are emotional creatures. For those people that choose not to feel, they don't have a full life. And we want to have a full life. We want to have an up and we want to have a down so we can enjoy the up again. And that's the flavor
So
of
we
life.
can
That's so
enjoy the
what's
middle.
wonderful. Yes, that's so what's wonderful about it is all of those experiences, but we can't be numb. We just can't
Mhm.
be. So I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well said, man. Well said.
When I
Thank
look at no, all of this is so accurate that taking responsibility, that's taking all your power back, right? Like
Yeah.
what Dave was talking
Mhm.
about. You get all your power back as soon as you're the one in charge of everything, every response that you show up with. And obviously, to Sean's point, like none of us are perfect, but we're always getting better. And I think that's important to recognize. Maybe the biggest benefits for me has just been my relationship with myself and my relationship with the people in my life that matter. Um, I spent so many years, we're talking all the way back to middle school, maybe earlier, really kind of not liking who I was and really feeling like I was never enough. And that my whole being, my entire existence was built around not feeling like I was enough and generally kind of hating myself. And to go from that to I really kind of like who I am. Like I'm so completely imperfect and I'm also so completely okay with that. And I never could have said that before. And that has been maybe the biggest gift of all of the inner work that I've done, all of the growing and learning and understanding and the awakeness that I'm experiencing now is I really am really comfortable with me exactly as I am. Can't wait to get better, also really okay with exactly where I'm at right now. And that lets me show up in relationships in a way that makes all of those relationships better. I'm not there just to hustle so somebody approves of me and likes me anymore. I think Sean, you touched on that. If our relationships are based on who we need someone for, who someone needs us to be, there's not a real relationship there. So my relationships are real and authentic and meaningful now, and the connection piece is just an absolute blessing.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
You all said the same thing, and I'm going to say it again. But when someone told me that I needed to take radical responsibility for everything that happened in my life, and I was like, you are fucking nuts. No, absolutely not. What do you mean radical responsibility? Like, there's so much shit that has happened to me that is out of my control. I don't want to take responsibility for that shit. Fuck you. Not a chance. Wrong. I learned that one the hard way. Even if it happened to me that I had no control over, I still have control over everything I do about it. And that was like a light bulb moment for me. It's like, wait, whoa, holy. Whoa. So even if this disaster here hit, I've got control over everything else I do afterwards. Fuck. Now I need to like grow up because I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. I needed to figure out If I'm responsible for that, what am I going to do? And what that helped me learn, the benefit, was I got to see and understand how I was letting fear control my life. I wouldn't do this thing, or I wouldn't have this conversation, because fear was a thing that was the driving factor that was preventing me from actually connecting with other people. And doing the thing that I knew was right. It was hard. Not even physically hard. Generally, it was emotionally hard. It was overcoming the fear of maybe I was going to cause a disconnect because I was standing up for myself. God forbid. After slowly building that confidence up, I'm at the point now where I can turn around and say, Steve, if you're going to go and cross that line, you need to bet on yourself again. And that is a form of self-belief that I never in my life thought I would have. And that is the benefit that I see, is the self-belief, the willingness to show up and try, and knowing that even if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be okay. The people that I've chosen to be in my life are going to be okay. And I'm still going to be loved afterwards. And that rolls right into the authenticity piece that you talked about, Sean, because I'm still me regardless. It is, I'm just willing to step into the fear rather than look at it and say, you're going to win today.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. May
Well
I just
said.
say one thing on that, Julie?
Yeah.
What Steve said just kind of brought up for me is, we can either choose to be a victim of our life circumstances, or we can choose to be a student of our life circumstances. And when we are a victim of our life circumstances, we end up becoming a perpetrator. We perpetrate on ourselves, which is what I used to do, or we perpetrate on other people. We put our shit on other people. But when we become a student and become aware, like Julie was talking about, then eventually we become a teacher. Like you guys are all teachers now, right? Because you've been a student of your life. And like Dave was talking about, you pass that on to other people. And that's the community. I've learned this. Now I want to show you how to do it. And that's the most basic, purest form of love that we can have, is I'm going to walk through this first and learn so I can help you.
The greatest thing we can do is, like you said, take our experience and at least have a willingness to share it.
Yes.
And that's what both you and Dave have done with us today. So I want to say thank you, Sean, and thank you, Dave, for spending an hour with us, or almost an hour, and an hour with our audience, and sharing what the work was like for you guys. So thank you very much. Thanks for being
Thank you.
here. Really appreciate you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.